There are plenty of questions facing any new car buyer, but one of the most fundamental is which fuel your car should run on. For most people, the choice will simply be between diesel and petrol, but depending on your motoring lifestyle, an electric car or even a hybrid could be just the thing. Trouble is, making the right choice isn't easy. Of course, you'll need to think about fuel economy, but you also need to think about the type of driving you do, general running costs, and how easily you can live with the car. Take these four Volkswagen Golfs for example. They may look pretty much identical, but there are some fundamental differences between them, and each one will suit a different type of buyer. Let's start with the UK's most popular choice, a petrol engine. It has plenty of advantages, not least the fact that petrol is cheaper to buy than diesel, and a petrol engine car tends to be cheaper than the equivalent diesel. But there are disadvantages too. For a start, petrol cars aren't as economical as diesels, and particularly with larger models, petrol engine cars tend to lose their value much more quickly. As a result, petrol cars like this one tend to suit buyers who want something fairly small and who have fairly low annual mileages, say something about 6,000 or 7,000 miles a year. If you have a higher average mileage, and particularly if it's upwards of say 10 or 12,000 miles a year, then a diesel car like this may make more sense. Typically, a diesel car is between 15 and 20% more efficient than the equivalent petrol model. So as your mileage rises, eventually you reach the point where the amount you save in fuel bills compensates for the extra that the car and the fuel cost in the first place. Similarly, because diesel engines have lower carbon dioxide emissions than the equivalent petrol, that makes the car cheaper to tax. And then there's the way they drive. Because diesel engines normally have a stronger low-down pull than a petrol engine, they make the car feel easier to drive. You may have heard that one of the drawbacks of a diesel engine is that it produces higher levels of local pollutants than a petrol engine, but that's no longer the case. With the latest diesel engines that meet Euro 6 emission standards, 99% of all soot particles are removed from the exhaust fumes. That said, one of the disadvantages of modern diesel engines is they normally work with a particulate filter. These need regular long journeys to keep them in full working order, so if you only ever poodle in and out of town, the filter could get clogged up and fail, and it will cost a lot to replace. Even so, for anyone who has a high annual mileage, and particularly if lots of those miles are on motorways, a diesel car still makes perfect sense. On the other hand, if lots of ambling around town sounds like a perfect description of your daily motoring life, then an alternative fuel car could well be your perfect partner. And before you hold your hands up in disgust at the very thought of it, remember that electric cars do have some real attractions. As you can see from this one, they're every bit as classy and as well equipped as normal cars, and they're very cheap to run. Their tax liabilities are low, charging them costs very little, and they're exempt from the London congestion charge. What you might not realise is that electric cars are really pleasant to drive too. Responsive and quiet, they'll whisk you around in almost complete silence. Trouble is, they won't necessarily do that for very long. Most electric cars will only go about 100 miles before they need recharging, and there's every chance you won't even get that far. Switch on lots of electrical items, drive the car hard or go out in cold weather and your range will be significantly reduced. To make matters worse, it's not as easy to recharge an electric car as it is to refuel a petrol or a diesel car. There are fewer places you can do it and it takes much longer, so you have to plan ahead and schedule regular charging into your motoring life. Last but not least, electric cars are very dear to buy, even with the help of a government grant. Despite these limitations, an electric car actually will suit a lot of people who don't realise it. So, if you never need to do a lot of miles at once and you can easily charge the car, it's certainly worth considering. If you can't do that, there could still be a solution. A hybrid like this that combines a conventional petrol or diesel engine with an electric motor. As long as the battery is charged, you have the benefits of all electric motoring. But thanks to the conventional engine, you also have a greater range and the added flexibility that comes from being able to fill the car up at any fuel station in a matter of minutes. In theory, that sounds like the best of both worlds, and in many ways it is. But there are a few words of caution. First, hybrids can be expensive to buy, and to take full advantage of their benefits, you need to spend a lot of time at low speeds and probably in town. People with a high annual mileage will almost certainly be better off with a diesel. And if you want to try one of the latest plug-in hybrids, which have larger batteries and a longer range on electric power alone, you'll need to have access to charging facilities. As we say, when you're choosing the right fuel for your next new car, there's an awful lot to consider, and no one answer will suit everybody. But if you take the time to get it right, you'll have mile after mile of happy and cost-effective motoring.